What is the truth? The truth is that as much as we want to be free, we live and we die together.
The first question I always ask at these conversations is, how did this come about? What was the inspiration? But in your case, Mo, this is a very loaded question. How did this come about? What was the inspiration?
Well, the inspiration was, it started with my dad because he worked in a sweatshop when he was 7 years old. I wasn't thinking about it later on in life, but I read a case about 72 immigrants that were trapped in a house in El Monte, California in 1995, and they didn't see sunlight for 7 years, and they were forced to make fast fashion and human trafficking films where a lot of them focused on sex trafficking. And I felt like sex trafficking doesn't touch everybody, but we all have a piece of clothing that's made in a sweatshop. And so, for me, I really was passionate about it because in the story, Jesus, Cesar, the bald guy, and El Jefe are all my father. All three of those characters. And because of how he was traumatized and he grew up, I'm Indian, and we grew up in that you get straight A's or you get a beating, So I wanted to learn how to forgive him. And actually my mentor, who isn't here anymore, his name's Irvin Kershner, he directed The Empire Strikes Back, and he helped me a lot. He sort of helped me go from being a producer to a director, and he said, in the hero's journey, atonement with the Father is the most important step, and by you doing this, you're gonna make peace in your life.
Yeah, Ari, I would love to ask you, first of all, how did this come about for you? What were your first conversations with Mo like, particularly when it came to the physical and emotional aspects that this role was going to require of you?
Well, the first conversations we had were just like trying to be friends, trying to have a connection, because I think that's what worked the most for me on set, and that worked for me to trust him. All the action and all the running and all the soccer scenes, most of them is me, of course, not the stunts I wanted to, but they wouldn't let me. But I had to take soccer lessons, I had to take sewing lessons, and even English lessons, because I talked like a caveman, so I had to communicate with crew, with Mo, to build the character. It was quite a challenge, but it was really fun. We wrote a monologue about all the thoughts of Jesus throughout the story. We also used a lot of substitution. Mo wouldn't care about sound guys, and he would just talk to me while shooting. Imagine this is happening in front of you. Imagine this person is in front of you. So yeah, most of the scenes is me reacting to that. It was the excitement that helped me do all this.
So you were 14.
I was 14.
How old are you now?
Now I'm 20, yeah.
Wow, my goodness. I was going to say, you definitely grew a few inches since this movie was shot. So I would love to ask you, Renata, about your first conversations with Mo, and what sort of informed your approach to the character, and what did you learn about trafficking throughout the course of the making of this film?
He was so nice to me, and we would laugh a lot. And I actually auditioned for another role. I was auditioning first for Marcella, then I got Nadia, but then a day before we started shooting, Mo was he called me and he was like, Renata, would you like to play Elena? And I was like, yeah, of course. I love the character, and I really fell in love with the monologue she gives to Jesus when she says goodbye. And I don't know, I learned so much. I think this is a very important and necessary movie. And it really opened my eyes, because of course I've heard about this terrible subject, but I've never really got to understand it as close as I did when I did the movie. And now, I'm still learning, and I'm asking all these questions all the time, and what can I do to be better and to help this matter? And because I think it, we all have to really take actions on this.
So, Mira, I know that human trafficking the fight against it has been a cause for you for a long, long time. what was it like the first time you saw this movie, and how important was it for you to be part of this team to get people to see the film?
Thank you. Yeah, just for context, I worked with Amnesty International for 3 years from 2004 as their Stop Violence Against Women campaign spokesperson. And then in 2009, I was inducted as the Goodwill Ambassador for the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime Against Human Trafficking, a position that I hold to this day. I'm also on the board of trustees of the UN Voluntary Trust Fund for Victims of Trafficking in Persons, which I encourage you all to donate to if you want to. If you feel moved by seeing this and you're like, I want to do something, that's something you can do right away. But it's endht.org if you're interested. But anyway, so when you say I've been working on it a long time, it's like my second career. It's like a whole other side of my life. But when I saw this film, I got to tell you, even with all of my expertise and my firsthand interviews of like 80 plus survivors of labor and sex trafficking, I could almost not take it because it was so heartbreaking to me to watch what was done, especially to the young people in the story. It broke my heart. And just so you all know that there are 50 million people living in the world in slavery today. It's about 50% sex trafficking, 50% labor trafficking. There are more people today living in slavery than at any other point in recorded human history. And currently less than 1% of exploited people ever get discovered or exit. You know, I think what this film does is it really is a call to action because, as you said, you see that all of us enjoy a bargain, right? We all like to buy fast fashion. I'm absolutely guilty of this. Or we buy fruits and vegetables, or we buy Christmas trees, or we buy so many different goods and services that have been touched by slave hands, and we're blissfully unaware of it, or perhaps consciously deciding not to look. If we put pressure on our governments to create standards for all corporations who do business in the United States, to have supply chain transparency that is vigorously vetted, audited, and that there are teeth, there are punishments when they don't comply, and that you can go to point of sale and know that what you're buying is slave-free. And there are very few companies that actually do this. It will not end without us. It will not.
Michael, I want to ask, what can we do in addition to all of the things that Mira brought up?
We dimly know that this is an evil and it's prevalent around the world. But when it's presented in the form of a wonderful movie that moves you, it's more than just skimming through an article. And I think this is the gift that you've given, Mo. Personally, what I liked so much was discovering that these people had dreams. That they wanted to come to be a soccer player, to learn the fashion industry, to get into college, and even the bad guy came here with dreams. And humanizing it just makes the impact that much stronger. But in terms of action, I think go to Mira's website and she will give you the cues.
Luisa, what was your take on the film the first time you saw the finished movie?
Yes, I met Mo in Mexico City. We were both working at the same post facility. And he came to me and said, Innocent Voices was my inspiration. Please watch my movie. And so I said, of course. And that weekend we saw it. And I was really shocked. I cried. I was at the same time grateful that such a filmmaker was making this movie, his first movie, with such talent, such power, such sensitivity. And I thought, how is he gonna get this movie out? Because this movie needs to be seen by the world. He's been so committed. It's been such a long process where he hasn't stopped. And so here we are part of his team, which he has dragged us along to make this happen and to take this to the world. And so I think every word of mouth is important, and every person that sees this movie will be changed and will have new awareness.
And finally, what do you hope, in a nutshell? I mean, so much as we're talking about human trafficking here, what do you really hope people take away from seeing City of Dreams?
You know, my goal was to break people's hearts with this and make them very angry. And I did it, and specifically chose to make it like a feature rather than a docudrama, because I don't really understand docudramas, and I grew up in Hong Kong and I didn't watch independent films. I watched Spielberg's Zemeckis movies, and movies were my teachers. You know, I learned never to give up from Rocky. And so I wanted, and people think that movies are not important and, oh my God, we just make movies. We're not brain surgeons. We are brain surgeons. I was a 12-year-old kid that was suicidal, and Rocky kept me alive, you know? So for me, I want people to watch this and I want them to be inflamed, because 100 years ago, there were things happening in society that aren't happening anymore because we as a society said enough. And I want them to be inflamed, and I want them to say enough. And I'm not a politician, I'm not an expert, like Mira's an expert in this area. I just knew that if I can move people emotionally, we'll find the pathway out of this. You know, that was what my goal was, and that's what I hope.
And ladies and gentlemen, please go to cityofdreamsmovie.com. Spread the word about the film. City of Dreams opens in theaters on August 30th. Thank you all so much for being here for today's Academy screening of City of Dreams, and thank you for an amazing conversation and everyone on our panel. Thanks, everybody.